Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike, and this presentation is about Theranos, the rise and fall of a healthcare startup. This presentation is for educational purposes only. Theranos is one of the most famous examples of how a company can grow very quickly through strong marketing and investor support, but also fail because of poor ethics, lack of transparency, and weak leadership.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David. I'll be going over a little short history. Theranos was founded in 2003 by Elizabeth Holmes. The main goal of the company was to change blood testing by using only a few drops of blood instead of traditional blood draws. This idea attracted a lot of attention because it sounded cheaper, faster, and more convenient for patients. Theranos raised over $700 million from investors and became valued at around $9 billion at its peak. However, the technology did not work as promised, and the company eventually shut down in 2018.
The biggest issue with Theranos was ethics. The company misled investors, patients, doctors, and business partners. Theranos claimed that its machines could run many blood tests from a tiny blood sample, but many of those claims were false or exaggerated. The company also hid inaccurate test results, which is especially serious because healthcare decisions depend on accurate information. In my opinion, this is where Theranos failed the most because it put image and growth ahead of patient safety.
Theranos was not a public company. That means it did not have a stock ticker or a public stock price like companies such as Apple or Tesla. It was privately held and funded by private investors. Even though it was private, it still became extremely valuable on paper, reaching about $9 billion at its peak. This shows how powerful investors' confidence can be, even when a company's actual product is not fully proven.
Theranos was incorporated as a Delaware C corporation. This type of business structure is common for startups because it makes it easier to raise venture capital money. Theranos received funding from private investors and venture capital sources, but it never completed an IPO. An IPO would have allowed a company to sell shares to the public, but the company collapsed before that could happen.
Theranos used a very strong marketing strategy. The company marketed itself as revolutionary healthcare. It promised cheaper and faster blood testing, which sounded like a major improvement for patients and doctors. Elizabeth Holmes also appeared in many media interviews and magazine covers, which helped build excitement around the company. Theranos also formed partnerships with companies like Walgreens and Safeway. These partnerships made the company seem more credible to the public.
Theranos had a traditional corporate hierarchy. Elizabeth Holmes was the CEO, and Ramesh Balwani was the president and COO. George Schultz was one of the board members. However, the structure was not effective. One major issue was the board included powerful and well known people, but many did not have strong medical or laboratory experience. Because of that, there was poor oversight. For a healthcare company, having the right scientific and medical expertise is extremely important.
Management and decision making. The management style at Theranos was highly centralized. Most major decisions were controlled by Elizabeth Holmes and top leadership. The company also had a very secretive culture. Employees were discouraged from sharing information, even with each other. This created an environment where problems were hidden instead of fixed. A healthier company culture would have allowed employees to speak up when the technology is not working.
Theranos motivated employees through its mission to transform healthcare. Many employees probably believed they were working on something that could help millions of people. The company also offered competitive salaries and stock options, which can be very motivating in a startup. However, the work environment was also high pressure. When motivation is based on pressure and secrecy, it can lead to stress, fear, and unethical decisions.
As for diversity, Theranos did not publicly disclose its overall company diversity data. Since it was a private company, it did not release the type of diversity reports that larger public companies often share. However, we can look at leadership diversity. In the leadership graph, there was one woman in leadership and 6 men. Elizabeth Holmes was the main female leader, but overall leadership was still mostly male. This also shows another issue. Diversity is not only about gender or race, but also diversity of expertise. Theranos needed more medical and scientific voices in leadership.
Theranos claimed to have a proprietary blood testing called the Edison. The company said this technology could automate lab testing and use only a small amount of blood. However, the technology did not perform the way the company promised. For social media and public image, Theranos relied heavily on public relations and media attention. Once investigative journalism exposed the problems, the company's reputation quickly collapsed.
Global presence and net worth. Theranos had limited international presence. Most of its operations were in the United States at its peak. The company was valued at around $9 billion, which made Elizabeth Holmes one of the most famous young entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. But after the truth came out, the company became worthless and eventually shut down. Today, Theranos is defunct, meaning it no longer operates.
Theranos claimed that their mission was to improve healthcare. In theory, that is a socially responsible goal because cheaper and faster blood testing could help many people. However, the company's actual ethical misconduct outweighed its social mission. A company cannot claim to help society while misleading patients and hiding problems with medical testing. Good intentions do not excuse dishonest actions.
Will we work here? Well, me and Michael spoke over the phone, and it didn't take long that personally we both would not work for Theranos based on what happened. The biggest reasons are the lack of transparency, poor ethical leadership, and the pressure placed on employees. This case teaches an important lesson. Innovation must be supported by integrity. A company can have a great idea, but if it is not honest about what its product can actually do, it can harm people and destroy trust.
For our references, we use sources such as the Wall Street Journal investigation by John Carreyrou, the book Bad Blood, SEC filings and press releases, Forbes, Fortune, CNBC, the US Department of Justice, and basic historical information from Theranos and Wikipedia. These sources helped explain the company's history, business strategy, ethical problems, and eventual collapse.
To conclude, Theranos is an important business case because it shows both the power and the danger of startup culture. The company had a powerful mission and strong marketing, but it failed because the leadership was not honest about the technology.
The main lesson is that businesses, especially in healthcare, must value ethics, transparency, and accountability just as much as innovation.